everyone. I'm glad you guys are joining us for our last session for TCCA 2020. And we have John Meehan, who has been here all day, and he is ready to go for this last session And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, and we're going to get all of his Google Docs and everything going for you to see. All right, you can take it over.
All right, here we go. Hi, everybody. I'm John. I'm very excited to be here with you, and I apologize that it's the last thing you're going to do today. They say to leave the best for last. I hope we've left the best for last, but I apologize that we don't have more time today. I'm on Twitter at MeehanEDU, and I will gladly talk to you after this session if you want to talk further. I know we only have about 50 minutes. I'm a high-energy guy. I'm bouncing off the walls. I'm from New Jersey, and I move my hands when I talk, so I'm sorry we're in a one-dimensional screen. I hope today's presentation does not feel one-dimensional, because I'm fired up to change the game of education. And I wrote a book called EDrenaline Rush, matches my shirt, and it's all about game-changing student engagement inspired by theme parks, mud runs, and escape rooms. That's a fun little array of crazy to throw at us at the end of a unit, right? At the end of the day, you want to settle in. We've gone the exact opposite way. We're going to leave the big bang, like, grand finale firework energy here. So I'm excited to connect with you in any way that I can. Please feel free to message me on Twitter. And on my website, I have copies of everything you'll see in today's presentation are available right there at Adrenaline Rush. If you like what you're hearing, I wrote the book. I don't think the book sucks. It's all about all of these things and ways that we can steal the science of this stuff to make our classrooms more engaging, whether you're in person or in hybrid and in flexible remote instruction, whatever that might look like for you. I hope you are staying safe. But let's get into it today. Talk about feeling safe. We're talking about things that are scary. Today's presentation, we'll talk about long lines and overpriced motion sickness. After that, we'll talk about manual outdoor labor and physical trauma. And if you're lucky and we have enough time left at the end, we'll talk about psychological pressure and mounting anxiety. And I don't mean to make light of any of these things. These are actually three of my favorite things in the whole wide world. But when presented in this way, it might make people not want to be a part of this conversation. But with a quick rethink, I want to talk about ways that we can make people feel safer in dealing with things that might feel unsafe. First and foremost, I'm going to turn on closed captions here in the bottom of my presentation screen. And just like that, we feel a little bit more connected and a little bit more safe. Ableism is uncool, sexism is uncool, racism is uncool. And what good games do is they let everybody have a place at the playing table. So you feel excited to show up for long lines and overpriced motion sickness, or manual outdoor labor and physical trauma, or anxiety and depression, and all of the things that students are dealing with their psychological pressures. Because what I'm talking about here is not the three things as listed. We're talking about long lines and overpriced motion sickness. We call that theme parks. Manual outdoor labor and physical trauma, we call mud runs. We talk about mounting psychological anxiety and feeling stress. Talking about escape rooms. And if you've never had a real escape room, perhaps you've done a video game, right? We pay good money to get freaked out, to be scared. And this time of week on Halloween, we can actually talk about that a lot. Like, what is it about the human psyche that seeks out things that disturb or unsettle us? We pay a ton of money to go on a roller coaster, which spins us up and down, or to jump into a lake or a freezing bucket of ice, or to crawl under barbed wire, or to do someone else's yard work for them and carry buckets up hills, right? And to take those escape rooms and be locked in the rooms with the zombies. There's something about these things that is incredibly fun, even though they're really freaky, really scary. I deal with anxiety and depression myself, and I deal with the fact that I am constantly feeling like, oh my God, when's that other shoe gonna drop? So why do I spend good money putting myself in a position where I know I'm about to be spun around, thrown upside down? I think the answer might go for this and much of what we're talking about today. Back to a book from 1978 by a researcher, philosopher named Bernard Suits. It's called The Grasshopper, about games, life, and the utopia. And he says, playing a game is the voluntary attempt to overcome unnecessary obstacles. And I love this as an idea about what makes these things all fun. Talk about utopia. You might see that word here, utopia, right there spelled out. Talk about the Greek. The word distress carries a lot of negative connotation. But there's also a thing that's its little-known cousin, which is known as eustress, spelled EU. Right? And utopia and euphoria and eustress all have the same root suffix, prefix in mind, because it's about being in a space that feels like good, like happy. Eustress is the happy stress that we get. We try stuff because we wanted to try stuff. Nobody forced me to go to Disney World. I chose to go to Disney World. Nobody made me run that Tough Mudder. I signed up for it. Nobody said at any point, I'm locked in that escape room. I reserve the right to say, I'm going to play this as long as I want to play it, and then I tap out. Something about playing a game is fun because we picked it. We chose to go there when we could have gone other places. frankly, if our classes can be more playful, can be more joyous, can be more interactive, they can be more inviting and maybe more participatory, more accessible for learners of all backgrounds and creeds and colors. I think that's a beautiful way to kind of start today's conversation. There's a great quote in Finland. It's an old Finnish proverb, and I wrote it in my book. It says, "Those things that you learn without joy, you will forget easily." Best part about your job as a teacher is you talk about things that you love. Hardest part is you talk about it to people who probably don't love it as much as you do. Nobody loves English as much as I love English, or science as much as you love science, or math as much as he loves math, and so on. And so the challenge is, how do I get kids excited about the thing that I need them to care about, which is reading, writing, speaking, presentation? And maybe the answer is I have to care about what they care about. If I can give a little vulnerability there, if I can give a little bit of joy, I can help them remember that I don't take myself so seriously. I'm serious about learning, for sure. But there's a lot of good science out there that I can lean into as an instructional coach and as a classroom teacher that says there are ways to motivate human beings that make them excited to come back for more. They're kids, whether they're teaching littles or middles or high schools or college kids. There's an element of play that is just part of, as Fred Rogers says, play is the work of childhood. Letting them laugh, letting them be together, letting them be seen and be heard, be a part of a team. High school's still very, very cliquey. In this bottom picture on the right-hand side, Eddie has thrown his head down laughing, and you can see him. He has those muscles, and he has that shaker bottle. He's an athlete. He's being scouted to play Major League Baseball. He's not going to go to college. He's going to go straight and enter the minor leagues, and his plan is to play ball, and he's very good. Meanwhile, Chase is right next to him. Chase is a music and theater kid. High school is still very cliquey. There's no reason for those kids to ever bump into one another outside of my classroom. But look at the joy that they're having together and laughing and saying, hey, you know what? In this 40 minutes, you're okay, man. How much more do they want to show up tomorrow? And maybe their life is a little less awkward in those hallways because they see someone who laughs with them, who celebrates with them, who, like my cat, will roll over and show me his belly. He says, I'm okay laughing with you, to be vulnerable with you, to give a little bit of that we've chosen to be here. And for the next 40 minutes, we're going to be in this magic bubble together. Everything else is going to disappear, and that's kind of okay. It helps feel safe and supported, and our goal is to do the same thing in our classrooms at level. Dave Burgess wrote the book, Teach Like a Pirate, and I'm very grateful he also published my book. But I loved in his book, he says, do you have any lessons that you can sell tickets for? He sincerely believes that there are days he could have a cash register outside of the door and students would pay a small sum of money to come into his room. I think about that often. He says, put another way, if students paid to come to school but had tickets and they could choose to go what class they wanted to go to, would they use their tickets on your class or would they use them somewhere else? Would you be teaching to an empty room? If you were a theme park, would you be the line that has the line out the door? Or would you be the line that says, hey, would anybody like to come in because there's nobody here? I think about my class as a place of joy and excitement and wonder, and you have no idea what's going to happen, but you're so excited to be there. You're like, here's my money. Let's do it together. I ran the numbers in my school, and I know that my school is a private school, but I've taught in the public school too, so the math works out with tax dollars in the public school. The cost to educate a child per day, per class, is somewhere between $10 and $20 per student, per class, per day. I asked that question, is that lecture I was about to give worth $10 today? Or that PowerPoint I was about to show worth $15? If I was to show the movie version of The Great Gatsby, is it worth $17 today to watch, just sit down, shut up, and watch the movie? And because it takes 3 class periods to watch the Great Gatsby movie, is that movie worth $41 when you can stream it for a month for $2? Now I start to flip my thinking and I say, how can I build a classroom that feels like a must-see event? That theme park, that energy, that mud run energy, that escape room energy. There's a ticking clock. You don't want to miss this. I have no idea what's going to happen, but I promise you it won't be boring. Ready, set, let's go. So how do I bring my kids into that? When I'm in teaching in the classroom, but I also work as an instructional coach and as a consultant and a speaker. And I give trainings before COVID all around the United States. And during COVID, I've done a lot of virtual trainings as well. Back when we were able to be in a personal space together, last March, I had a training where I said, let's just take a worksheet and cut it into strips. Numbered problems, cut into strips. Then we'll take those strips and put them in plastic eggs. They were plastic eggs because it was the Easter season and they're available at every Walmart and Target and grocery store for very, very cheap. Then take those eggs, put them all in a bucket in the center of the room, divide students into teams. All right, guys, here's the deal. You're going to send one representative up from your team, grab an egg from the bucket, take it back to your desk group, open it up when you sit down, no texting and driving, so you have to sit down first, then open up and solve that numbered question with your teammates. Write the answer on a sheet of paper, lock it back up, rinse and repeat again and again we go. How many can you solve over the course of the next 10 minutes? That's the game. It's not particularly exciting, but that's the game. Because ableism is uncool, I don't want people knocking one another down and making a race out of it. So I want them to solve and only walk, no running. You can, of course, play with your own students in any way you want to. But I also made it that each of the problems were different difficulties. So maybe problem 7 was a really hard problem. It might take him 30 seconds to solve it. But after the game is over, there's a hidden point value that's revealed for each of those problems. So they're not just racing to see who can get it done the fastest. They're racing to see who can get it done the rightest. And that takes time. Anyways, I posted the video up online and I didn't think much of it. I went to bed that night and I woke up the next morning and there were 10,000 hits on the video, 10,000 views. And I said, well, I think I have to do a thing about this because it feels like it has legs. So I call it the Egg Dash Challenge. And I used that hashtag and I said, hey, post up on your Egg Dash Challenge. This is how you follow the rules. I spelled it out on my website. I would love to see your thoughts and your variations. I started seeing variants from schools all over the world, littles and middles, high schools, all the way up to adult learners, PD trainings. I saw 40 different states in the United States doing variants of this and posting. We were adding it to the map. I saw 10 different provinces in Canada and 12 different countries in the world taking part in this Egg Dash Challenge. And I was like, well, that's it, right? Play is universal. This is not a particularly hard activity. We all have to give worksheets. Worksheets suck. But if I could take a worksheet and cut it into strips, kids are excited to want to do that worksheet. How much more then could I get out of my class if we took that playful spirit and put it into our classrooms each and every single day? In a month, this had 75,000 views, and there were schools all over the planet who were willing to, quote, pay money for that ticket, right? To be in that classroom, to do that sort of event, indoors and outdoors, old and young. And I love that playful learning to adapt to our classrooms to really help our students be excited to try and to fail and then to rinse and repeat and do again and again and again. So I have a pop quiz for you. I know it's sort of mean to end the day with a pop quiz. You didn't think you'd be tested, but here we go. On the right-hand side, this comes to us from an engineer. His name is Mark Rober. He gave a TED talk about tricking our brain into learning more. And he says, this is our test. I would like you to push button 3 for 5 seconds. And when you're done, push button 6 for exactly 1 second. When you're done with that, step 3 is to push buttons 3 and 5 for 6 seconds, and on and on and on we go. He asked, well, how much do I have to pay to take this test? Because it's an 87-page test, and you're not allowed to work on page 2 until you have page 1 100% complete. He says, my guess is most people would not pay much money to take this test. He said, but what if we just shifted our thinking and turned this test into a game? Now, it's still not a great game. It's the exact same activity, it just says the word game on it. He says, well, let's take that game and present it in a slightly unconventional way, right? Same activity, just take it and turn it on its head. I took mine and I cut it into strips. Rober says, what if you just turned it sideways or posted it in a different direction? Now there's a curiosity, a novelty factor that makes people like raise an eyebrow and check it out. Okay, that's fine. And he says, same activity, can't get to page 2 until you get 100% on page 1, but here we are, right? What if after page 1, then page 2 gets harder, and so on and so forth and so forth. So let's take those buttons and rearrange them. Maybe those buttons were too easy. Let's put them in a different configuration. Now let's take those buttons and different color of paint. So now we'll have those buttons hidden behind a series of colored keypads. And now let's take that which was a written prompt before with very clear instructions. Do all of page 1 to get to page 2, and made it a visual prompt instead. Do all of level 1 before you get to level 2. It's the exact same assignment. How much would I have to pay you to take that assignment now? Or more directly, how much would you pay me to do that exact same thing? Because theme parks and mud runs and escape rooms do what video games do, and they make us excited to try things that we would have tried otherwise, but we feel a sense of accomplishment and joy and mastery as we move forward through them. This isn't a new concept. It actually goes way back to antiquity. There's a great researcher, he's a philosopher from the 1960s, who's now passed. His name is Joseph Pieper. And he talks about this idea of way back from the day of St. Thomas Aquinas, dates way back to the day before that of Aristotle and Socrates. And he writes a book called Leisure, the Basis of Culture. He's a theologian and a philosopher in the Catholic tradition. I work in a Catholic school. And he talks about this age-old timelessness of a world where learning was not done because we were forced to do it. Again, there's consent, there's choice. It was done for its own sake. What Pieper says in his book is his leisure in the word from Greek is the word schole, and in Latin it's the word scala. So we get the word scholarship or scholastic, the English word school. Literally, the word we use to designate the place where we educate and teach comes to us from the word that means leisure itself. Work is the stuff you had to do. Scholastic was the stuff you got to do, that you wanted to do, that you chose to do. And yet our classrooms often feel like the exact opposite of that. They feel like little factories for kids to be churned out like meat through a grinder. What he says in his book is we really want to reclaim our calling. The unexamined life is not worth living. The life where you just live in the workaday world like a robot actually robs you of your humanity. So how can we get more choice and more volition into our classrooms? Video games do that really well. You choose your character, you choose the way you play, you choose your level, you choose your costumes. Could we have our classes feel more playful in that same spirit? One more book, and then I promise I will get into some really deep nerd stuff for the rest of the presentation. Greg Topo is a researcher and a writer for the USA Today for 20 years. He was the national K-12 education reporter. He went on to become a managing editor at the Inside Higher Ed magazine, and he wrote a book called The Game Believes in You, How Digital Play Can Make Our Kids Smarter. As an instructional coach, a big part of my job is I do a ton of research about what is the brain science behind why we do what we do, and you follow the data. And what the data says is that video games are really hard. Kids play video games and they get beat a lot. They get blown up a lot. They die a lot. And yet they don't really care. In fact, video games made it sort of normal to get beat up or to get blown up or to die because they were designed to steal our quarters. When they build video games, Topo talks about it in his book, they want you to fail a certain amount of times. If it's too easy, you won't play that game again. If it's too hard, you'll be so frustrated that it won't sell any copies, and then that game will end up putting the company out of business. So they have a sweet spot between a 0% failure rate and a 100% failure rate. And when they design a video game with old school difficulty, they're hoping that you fail that game 80% of the time, which is insane. 4 out of 5 times as you play, they expect you to fall down the pit and die. And yet, if in class a child was to fail so much as one time a math question, they'll throw their arms up and say, I can't do math. But they'll go home and play Fortnite and die 4 out of 5 times. So why is that? How is the same kid in school so mollycoddled and so bubble wrapped that they're afraid to fail but once, and yet they'll go home and 8 out of 10 times just spend their life dying? It's as if there is something that a game does, that playful space does, that consent does, that school has either forgotten or failed to address. Because it seems like our students are learning in spite of school, not because of school, when they go home and spend hours playing Among Us or Fortnite or Mario Kart. And they get really good at it. And then they watch other players who are even better than them, and they get even better than. We don't have the ability to say that they don't know how to focus. They focus on things that they have chosen. How do we get more choice into our classrooms? I think what video games do so well, and it wouldn't be a good PD without an acronym, so here it is for the day. They create a space where it's safe. And video games are great like this. Instruments are great like this. Mud runs are great like this. I use this acronym SAFE because what video games do and what escape rooms do is they deliver specific, actionable feedback expediently. Right there on the spot, you either know that you got it right and you move forward to the next level, or you got it wrong and you have the chance to do it again. Video games are infinitely patient and infinitely stupid. They will give you more time to play and play and play if you want to keep dropping your quarters in. They'll happily take that money from you. Specific actionable feedback in a Mario game where you run from left to right and fall down the pit. And when you fall down the pit, you don't wait 3 weeks to find out you fell down the pit, and you get a letter back from the teacher that says 3 weeks ago you failed and you've forgotten it. Right there on the spot, they say, you died. Do you want another shot at this? And they have the chance to do that again and again. It's the same way that Mozart got good at the piano. Push the button, get the right sound. If it makes the right sound, play the next sound. If it plays the wrong sound, push a new button. Do it again. Specific, actionable feedback expediently. If our classes could give that faster, that volition, that choice, that autonomy, really helps our students feel that what they're doing is building towards a sense of purpose and ownership. And that's what we want to see in our classrooms. It leads to what we call the flow state. And this comes from a researcher. He's a Hungarian-American researcher named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. And he says in positive psychology, the flow state is that idea of being in the zone. A mental state where your operation is at full immersion and full energy. You're fully involved, you're enjoying, you lose track of time, you forget to eat, you forget to sleep. You're binge watching and they're like, do you want to watch one more episode of it? You're like, absolutely, let's go, I'm hooked on this. You hit that flow state because the thing is getting harder, more challenging as you are getting more skilled, you're learning more. It pushes that flow state in great games like basketball or chess or ballroom dancing or mountain climbing. It's pushing your skill, and as you get stronger, it's giving you new challenges. If the challenge level is too low and you are too highly skilled, you are apathetic when you walk in. Kids don't care about your Classroom Jeopardy game because they already know all these answers and they don't care. And you put a lot of time developing the Jeopardy game, probably took 2 hours to build it, but the average kid's going to answer like 1 or 2 things, then realize they can't win, so they're going to stop playing. Or on the flip side, they're going to come in really anxious because the challenge level is way too high and they don't feel confident in their own skill. And what's going to end up happening is they're going to tune out because they feel distress. What good games do is once you've leveled up from level 1 work, you've earned the right to work on level 2 work. And they stretch that you're getting stronger and smarter and getting the pat on the back and the attaboy and you can do it. And you're feeling like you're growing and you're glowing and you can't wait to tackle the next thing. And before you know it, it's 4 hours later and you didn't eat lunch. Oh, mom, one more level, one more man, and then I'll take out the trash. And you just forget because you're so in the zone. They're designed to hook our attention. So I want to break today's presentation into 3 parts. And I'll do it in the spirit of a book written by Daniel Pink. He wrote a book called Drive about the surprising truth about what motivates us. In Pink's book, he says that carrots and sticks are passé. Kids don't move because we hit them with sticks or because we feed them carrots. You should not do an escape room and say the winning team gets candy. I don't buy physical prizes for my students because the prize should not be an extrinsic reward. If a kid brought a Snickers bar to class, he doesn't need your candy. He can eat what's in his bag. So this idea that extrinsic motivation is what is used to motivate, he says, doesn't actually work. What people move for is intrinsic for 3 reasons: because they desire autonomy, because they crave mastery, and because they seek purpose. Traditional homework does not work because not every home is traditional. If a child has an A in your classroom, then why, oh, why do they have to do the same homework as a child who has a C? That doesn't make any sense. Your class is not called how much homework can you get done? It's called do you understand this concept? English. If yes, then why are you assigning the child who has an F the same homework as a child who has a B? Because a child who has an F is repeating the same process, doing that same homework, but clearly isn't mastering the content, and simply doing the homework isn't getting them any closer to the purpose of that class. If they're repeating the same error 3 and 4 and 5 times, working on that project for 3 and 4 and 5 hours, simply working on it doesn't make you necessarily better at it. If I was given a basketball to then shoot around for 5 hours, I could not say, I'm LeBron James now because I played 5 hours of basketball today. It doesn't work that way. There's no autonomy when every child is expected to do the exact same homework. The mastery and purpose is robbed because children figured out how to game the school system a long time ago. If we don't grade their homework, they don't do the homework. So then we grade the homework, and what do you know? They start doing the homework, but they didn't actually do the homework. They just copied it. They took a picture and sent it to their friends. Then they get 10 free homework grades of 10 points apiece for an entire 2-week unit. They come in with 100 free points. They take that test. They've learned nothing. They get a 60% on that homework, and we say, Billy, you just need to study harder. You had good homework grades. Better luck next unit. We then arbitrarily reset the unit, pick a new unit, and we move on, take the 60% they got on the test, the 100 they got on the homework, and average them out and give them a B- and move them forward and say, better luck next time. And if they bring in hand sanitizer, maybe we give them 5 extra points. There's no purpose to that. They've gamed that system, and we're all getting played as a result. So our goal in today's presentation, in about the half hour we have left, how do we bring more autonomy and mastery and purpose so that there's volition, there's choice, there's engagement, and authentic fire for learning. That, yeah, we're having some fun, but this is some serious fun like a video game. We're leaning in and getting stronger each and every day. Break today's presentation into 3 parts. Talk about autonomy, then mastery, then purpose. Have you ever played any of the Mario video games, often the Mario Kart games? You have the chance to pick a character. Maybe you're Luigi, or you're Mario, or you're Wario, or you're Yoshi, or you're Bowser. There's no functional difference between most of these characters. I know people who are really big fans are like, that's not true. The heavy racers move faster or whatever it is. But like statistically, there's no real difference between the red, blue, and the green. Doesn't matter. If you play Monopoly, it's the same thing. There's no statistical difference between your likelihood of winning if you're the hat versus if you're the thimble versus if you're the dog. And yet, the first thing a game says is, welcome to our game. Which character would you like to play as? It immediately reminds you that you have chosen and that you do not have to play this thing. You wanted to play this thing. If you force someone to play it, it would be work. Our goal is to create a leisure activity where they said, hey, I don't know, I want to play this guy. I want to try it this way. I want to take a move in a slightly different direction than somebody else. I want to buy that property. I want to move to the right or move to the left. And the game immediately gives you feedback about whether that was a good decision or a bad decision in a collaborative space that's also some competition. So, talking about autonomy in my English class, could I make a year-long game that was a race for the American dream? Because here's the truth, our brains are hardwired for story, and we're really good at keeping sense of once upon a time in a world where ... I have to cover 400 years of content in 36 weeks. That's almost impossible. Way too much information is like being sprayed with a fire hose. And so rather than trying to make every day a different day, I took my class and divided it into 8 or 9 units of about 3 weeks apiece. And in each unit, we'll play for a full 3 weeks the same kind of game, practicing our skills, like 3 weeks on basketball or 3 weeks on soccer or 3 weeks on baseball, developing the muscle memory of the skill we're trying to cultivate as we learn for that 3 weeks. Then when we test or deliver, it's not teach, 1 day of review game and then have a test. Rather, it's the unit itself feels like a game where we're competing and we're strengthening, we're seeing growth, and we're seeing that flow state. And I'll give examples immediately, all themed around the things we're studying in American literature. So when we work in the Ernest Hemingway unit, for example, we go to the battlefield and we're trying to help these people who are getting wounded on the battlefield of the lost generation To do so, we have to understand their wounds. So we have to dig for some text evidence about the type of things they're trying to reveal to us as clues of their own trauma. Maybe we go to the Huck Finn unit, we talk about the mighty Mississippi. We're trying to recover artifacts of social justice and social influence of our peer groups. But we'll use something like Twitter for social media. Hey guys, can we take notes on Twitter and share what we're finding? There's some humor here, but there's also some sadness. Let's recover these things. What a child chooses to find in that unit is entirely up to them. But I'm setting us in the world of the story, and now they become like players in games in these spaces. And I'll give an immediate example. That way, we're spending 400 years or 36 weeks chasing this great American dream. Who has that dream? Who stole that dream? Who took that dream? Who protects that dream? Who defends that dream? Who lost that dream? How do we pervert or protect that dream? And that story makes students feel like there's a reason or a purpose for this class. Not just, well, we have this one is romanticism, then we do realism, and I guess after that we do Harlem Renaissance. But they feel like they're characters who are traveling 400 years through history as if they're recovering these lost elements of what it means to be people who protect and defend this great American ideal. So here we are, American Dream, first day of class. Hey guys, come on and grab seats. You're gonna sit in 5 teams, blue team, red team, green team, white team. And I did this virtually where they took virtual teams in breakout rooms. We had a lot of stuff to cover, guys. It is a time travel game. We have 400 years of content to cover and only 36 weeks to do it. Got to move quick. Let's build our time machines right now. To do so, you'll see that in this slide deck, there are 10 different slides that you can navigate to with your teammates. I don't care which one you pick, but you have to pick one at a time. As you have that thing and you think you've completed the task that's written on that thing, call me over. If you got it right, I'll check you off the list and you're moving forward. You can work on any other one. I don't care the order in which they do these things, whether they sign up for text alerts before they post their first Flipgrid, for example, and tell me how to pronounce their name, or a Padlet where they tell me their preferred pronouns, or a sketch note where they draw what their dream classroom might look like, or they take a survey where they say their learning styles as preferences go. I don't care. By the end of this 2 or 3 hours that we're going to start at the first days of class, I'm going to have every kid in class completing every one of these 10 centers. Again, choice and voice. I don't care whether you do Flipgrid before Padlet, before Remind. I'm going to cross off the list. Again, micro credentialing, micro badging. Nice work. Yes, keep going. You got 2 right. You got 3 right. You got 4. Turn it in at your own pace. I'll turn on the Zoom call. You guys can dial in. When you think you have it, Zoom me in the breakout room. We'll solve that up and we'll move on to the next activity. So students will complete things like this on their character sheets. Maybe they get to the station that has the book in the background, and on the book station, they learn that they have to write their goals for the year. I don't know what your goals are. You tell me. I just need 3 sentences. My goal for the year is to become a public speaker. I think I'm a good writer, but I get nervous when I speak. Okay. When Sally writes that down, I can see it. I give her a check mark. Nice work, Sally. You've completed something here. She hears yes from me. She starts to believe in herself. Henry Ford says, whether you believe you can or you believe you cannot, you are right. I tell the student 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Nice work. You got it. Keep going. Keep going. You got this. You're smart. Nice job. You're killing it today. How much more do they believe in themselves and want to try that harder work because they're hitting that flow state where that was easy, that was easy, that was easy. Okay, this is a little harder. Games are inherently fair because they're stretching you to get stronger as you go. At a second station yet, maybe they're filling out a personality profile, maybe an Enneagram test or a Myers-Briggs personality. Just want to know a little bit about, complete this, give it a little bit about who you are. Nice work, moving on. At a third station yet, talk about create a character. Students do this in all of their games. They get to customize their avatar. Cool. I have a spiderweb graph here. Could you rate your talents on a scale of 1 to 6 when we're talking about reading and writing and tech, social, gaming, and speaking? But you're only allowed to rate yourself as 1 level 6 and 1 level 5 and 1 level 4 and so on. So you tell me, what are you best at? What's your second best skill? Your third? How much more rich data do I know every child in this warm-up activity versus let's go around and pretend 2 truths and a lie, or we're going on a fake picnic. My name is Sally and I'm bringing Snickers. And we just, okay, now we do math class. Now I have rich data on every child. And when I put in groups together, I can say, okay, Sally sees herself as a really strong writer. That's helpful for me because I can help her feel empowered when she's with other writers who are not quite as strong. Meanwhile, Sally sees herself as a person who's still emerging in technology. No problem. I won't throw her in the deep end with a group of other students who all see themselves as level 6 technology. I'll be like, that's fine. Put your tech kids with kids who are other tech kids and they'll work together because running with people who are stronger will make you stronger. And the students who are emerging, let them work together. Sometimes you need those homogenous groups. Sometimes you need to mix it up. It lets me understand why and how I'm doing that. I'm not just punching in the wind. I'm not making guesses. I'm making informed data based on what the child is saying. Now, these teams are working and they're creating stuff and they're completing all their different workstations. Fine, fine, fine. I have 5 different groups and they're racing through history and they're calling me over. Mr. Meehan, we got the Flipgrid done. Hey, can you check out our Google form? Okay, nice work. I have our sketch notes. Beauty of this in a real classroom, if I'm in a physical space, is I can set a timer in the background and just let the groups teach themselves. And as they're working on stuff, I'm like Jeff Probst on Survivor. Nice work, red team. Keep it up, blue. Step it up, yellow. Let's go, white. Letting them move at their own pace, and they can start to see the signs of their yeses and the checkpoints, that mounting sense of mastery. Hey, we're falling behind. We need to step it up. Or if there's a group who races ahead, like the white group here might, I'd come over and tap them on the shoulder and say, hey guys, can you give me some clarification about why you said what you said here on this flip grid or on this Google form? You said the sketch note, a good classroom has great lighting. What do you mean by that? It's a small attempt to just slow a student group down just a little bit because it keeps the game really close. And what happens with the best games is they're nail biters down to the wire. Mario Kart does a great job of this. If you fall behind, they give you the blue turtle shell so you can always blast your way to the front. Monopoly does not. If you fall out early and you didn't wind up buying the blues or the purples or the greens or the yellows, you're pretty much just sitting on, oh, I have the light blues. I'm going to get beat today. Yep. And you know it. And then you have to play for 3 hours and you know it the whole time. Great games always give you a chance to have like that rubber band mechanic. It gets you right back into the game. So you're never fully out of it. And that's why Jeopardy doesn't work, because it ends up the kids run the math in their head and they say, I'm out of it by quiz numbers. I can't possibly win, so I'm going to tune out. Kahoot works, unfortunately, the same way. They'll play it and they'll just start mashing buttons. They're not actually trying to get back into the game. So I can calibrate and give harder work to students who are racing ahead, and then work with clarification or the attaboys for the students who might be falling behind. Because in the end, we're not teaching content, we're teaching people, right? We're not just giving math or science or English history. Rather, we have the privilege of using those lenses to teach the human beings in front of us. And if we see those people for their humanity, we can encourage them to be celebrated and to push harder for the work that we need them to do. We see you, we recognize you, we express that you're awesome and you were made perfectly exactly as you are, whoever you are. Now, because I see this about you, I want to challenge you to be a better version of yourself. Out of Doug Limon's book, Teach Like a Champion 2.0, he said the reward for correct answers was always harder questions in a good classroom. So you're never done learning. When you overcome a challenge, you start looking forward to the next challenge. You don't sit there and earn time on the bench to play on your phone or do work for your other classes. Rather, you finish that station early. Nice work. Do you want to work on other work? This is the enrichment stuff. This is that next level work. And if you focus on the quality of the work, you're naturally going to get a good grade. Versus if you focus on the grade, then the work will suffer because you start to take shortcuts and play the system. Students finish a center or a station early with me in a traditional classroom. I'd say, no problem, guys. Here's a big old bag of Legos. Can you build for me with the Legos what we read last night from The Great Gatsby? Build whatever you want. Just take a bunch of pictures and put it in a Google slide deck and share it with me. I just need to see an annotation on the right-hand side. Why did you build what you build? Look at this picture. Kids built this stuff. How much more do they understand it because they've curated and built the world of this thing? When you're playing with Legos, there's a metacognitive piece in there. I need the green, not the blue. I need the green square. I know, no, it has to be green. It has to be green. They know why they picked what they picked. They then build it and have to explain why they did what they did. That's high cognition. That's Bloom's taxonomy, evaluate and create. That's top level stuff. And that's a reward activity for finishing work a little bit before the other groups. How much more would they want to engage in this class because they're rewarded with being pushed and being stretched? You can do it with Minecraft the same way if you're working virtually. Hey guys, using tools that you have at your house or toys that you have on this website, can you build me a XYZ? How excited are students to then be seen by their peers to say, I think I crushed it, here's what I have, et cetera, et cetera. Another one I love for an enrichment activity, I'll use story cubes. They're amazing. You can buy them as a deck for physical classroom. They have an app you can download totally for free. And then each of the decks on the app are like maybe $2 for each themed deck. But it's just a series of emojis that you just roll by shaking your phone or roll by shaking the dice. And it's up to you to tell me a story in which you incorporate all 9 of those items. I'll do the exact same thing for any unit we're covering. Roll those dice, guys. Tell me the story of the Great Gatsby. Go. You have to incorporate every one of the pictures in your story. This is hard because there's a cell phone. There is no cell phone in the Great Gatsby. The book was written in the 1920s. Students have to then be creative and talk to each other and say, well, cell phones are like, about like image obsessed, like, your social media profile. So like the Great Gatsby is the type of guy who would make a social media profile because he wants people to be his friends. Oh, okay. And there's a fish. Well, why is there a fish? Well, it's sort of fishy because he's not really he's like trying to catfish people into his life. Oh, right. But they're coming up with that. That's not me. That's very high level. And they're explaining back to me. And that might take 5 minutes, 10 minutes. That might take a whole class period telling me the story of what we learned, but incorporate all of these new elements with these creative and these visual elements. It's a great way. Could you do this with emojis? Hey guys, welcome to today's Zoom class. Here are 10 emojis. Work them into a sentence where you explain to me how ancient Mesopotamia is like pretzel, dancing girl, lips, flag of Argentina, go. And just watch them go. Watch them talk to one another. Watch them curate and create. Really creative, really fun. A lot of ways to play with it. I really love story cubes. Talking about rolling dice. This is my unit. I'll give you a deep dive of what it looks like in a particular 3-week unit of study in my class. The Scarlet Letter, we read in previous years, we've read it, and I hope this looks spooky when you see it on your screen, because it was designed to feel spooky. That's the feeling I want. We're in this unit of ancient Puritan times, and it's spooky because the devil's haunting the woods, and there's scandals and there's secrets. And I have this logo in the bottom that almost looks like a Ouija board kind of thing, right? The text quest with this sort of pentagram-looking shape. That's actually not a pentagram. It's the shape of like a polyhedral dice, like you would use in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. And that's exactly what I did. I know my kids care about Stranger Things, so I was like, cool. I can turn the Scarlet Letter into a unit on Stranger Things, because isn't it about taboos and the dark stuff, the wicked and the weird? All right, here we go, guys. Come on in. They come into class and there's spooky music playing. Hey, guys, come on in, grab seats. Can we go ahead and read this slide that's on the big board? I call on a student. And he says, you find yourself in the unfamiliar landscape of colonial Boston, standing amid a crowd of serious-faced Puritans. The year is 1642, and a terrible scandal is running rampant through this deeply religious society. A married woman named Hester Prynne stands high on the scaffold in the center of town. Her crime? She's conceived a child out of wedlock, and yet she refuses to name the fellow sinner. Who's the baby's father? I would like you, as a small team, Team 1, Team 2, Team 3, and 4, confer with your teammates. What would you do in this scene? This is Dungeons and Dragons, right? You meet an elf in the woods. Do you go left? Do you go right? Do you go center? Do you slay the dragon? Do you take his treasure? I don't care what they say. And I just recapped what they were supposed to have read last night. I want to hear why they said it. That metacognitive piece I need from them. So I'll say, all right, you have 3 choices. What would you do? Easy, medium, or hard choice. Easy choice is join in the conversation. The woman's a sinner, and she deserves to be shamed. Most of the characters in this book went that direction. Maybe you want to say, I don't know, let's say nothing. Things will escalate quickly. Let's just stay quiet, and we'll avoid trouble. Or maybe you want to do the hard thing. Stand out and speak out against injustice. This is not our business, and we should lay low, stay out of this nonsense and affair. And I'll let them strategize as a team for 3 demands. I don't care what their answer is going to be. I need to be prepared to defend their answer. Then they come up, okay, Billy, what do you want to do on behalf of blue team? We're going to go with the medium choice, okay? Johnny, on behalf of red team, what do you want to do? We're going to go with the easy choice. Janie, we'll go with hard. Don't care what they pick. When they scan this QR code, again, choice, right? Autonomy. They now have a prompt question for writing for the day on a Google form. That scan took them to that prompt. They voted, they wanted that one. By choosing X, they unchose Y and Z. So there's a level of ownership that comes with that immediately. And then that Google prompt says, hey, you picked the easy thing, no problem. In the book, a lot of people did that. Can you show me 3 or 4 examples in that book? And it'll be a Google length validated form that asks for 300 or 400 characters before they're able to hit the submit button. Again, you chose it, so the consequence feels like it's fair. Maybe another team might have to pick the hard thing. Hard is hard, man. You picked the hard thing. Not a lot of characters in the book did that. Can you find one really good example in the book of a character who you're proud of so far? A slightly different question based on the text that you have selected. But here's the truth. Because I length validated that and it's harder to do, maybe they only need 150 characters in that regard. Can you find the harder thing, right? Easy, medium, and hard. They scaffold it right there on the fly, and they're still talking to one another. They're still all giving me a written prompt. They're still all giving me answers to last night's homework, but they're giving it in a way that they feel like they've had some ownership. Even if they didn't read a single word of that book, they know what they're looking for is inspired by the choices that they have made, both outside of class and then back in it. I love this as a writing prompt, and I'll use it in any unit, any content area. And then we can take the idea of that egg dash challenge and break it into a multi-day centers. So instead of grabbing a different egg all at once, you pick a single egg and you work on that egg for the entirety of today's class. Hey guys, I have 7 different eggs or 7 different centers here for you. You can play with Legos for the entirety of today's class if you want to. You can play with the story cubes entirely from today's class. You can use sketch notes. You can fill out a graphic organizer. You can just talk to me. It's Montessori school on steroids. You pick the center you want to work on today as a team. All of these are different ways to annotate the story, are they not? Right? Draw the pictures. Tell me what the pictures meant. Build it out of Legos. You have 40 minutes. Team A, which one do you pick? Oh, we want to draw pictures today. Okay. Team B, what do you want to do? Can we do the graphic organizer? No problem. Team C, we're going to reenact some scenes. Can we make some short Flipgrid videos? Don't care, whatever they picked. Fine, fine, fine. Here's the beauty of it. It's a 7-day unit. Each day of the unit, they're going to pick one station, and they're never allowed to go back and do the same station twice. So on any given day, a student group is working on Legos, or is working on sketch notes, or is working on graphic organizer, or is talking to me with a teacher, whatever it is. At the end of that time, they then say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let me see the work products turn in from team A, B, C, and D. Thank you guys so much. I'll take a look at these and compare them, and we'll start tomorrow's class, see where we left off. This is a game like Whose Line Is It Anyway, where the games are made up and the points don't matter. I get to see what they've turned in, and I don't know what an A-level work is going to be, because here's the truth. On any given day, you're comparing apples to oranges, right? Maybe one group has done a sketch note, another one has done a graphic organizer, another one wrote questions or annotations, but you can see that they're putting in honest work. And then you start the next day's class off with, guys, it was a really close race between everyone yesterday. But the team that got the gold medal is, drum roll please, ooh, the one who did the sketch notes. Look at those pictures, guys. Look at the text evidence we see on this. I take that picture and post it up on my LMS, or I share it with the class, and I was like, that's the high water mark right now. If you want to get an A, or you want to be the one who gets the gold medal tomorrow, this is where it's going to be. I'm disaggregating A level work and gold medal level work, because the gold medal might have 3 or 4 teams who all submitted A level work. But for today, this team did a little bit better for whatever reason that is capricious. That rising tide lifts all ships. Every single day, then, they're pushing a little bit harder for a little bit more work because they're proud of the work that they're doing. And that autonomy, they're seeing that there's a reward and they're seeing progress, and they're that much more excited to stay in that flow state. We can do the same thing when they create avatars for a unit. Hey guys, we just learned about, I don't know, going to outer space. Can you give me what an ideal space explorer would look like in the 21st century? I did this one where students were in the world of Alexander Hamilton. I said, what type of hero would you be if you were trying to not throw away your shot? Student created this avatar, and I noticed he could draw, but I was particularly struck by this detail, and I'm zooming in. And it's not to make a political statement, it's to make a personal observation. This student said he would have a hydro flask with some dope stickers, and included in that, he has the rainbow flag. In the game world, this child felt comfortable disclosing to me as an adult that he was LGBT. The game world doesn't care whether you're gay or straight or black or white or rich or poor. The game world says, you are really good. I can't wait to see what you can do. How much more am I able to reach that child's unique needs? Because what I find out through the game world is I'm the first adult he felt comfortable telling that information to, because the game doesn't judge you for those things. There's a seat at the table for everyone in this playful environment. And I love, love, love having that for autonomy. Set up autonomy and mastery and purpose today. I want to talk about some more video games and close out with mastery and purpose here before we close out today. Here's an old school video game you might remember from about 10 years ago. Most people played it at least once on their phones. Angry Birds. If you've never played Angry Birds, mastery is built into the Angry Birds DNA. Here's how it works. You take your red bird and launch them across the screen. If you knock down the tower in 1 shot, they give you 3 stars. If it takes 2 shots, they give you 2 stars. If it takes you 3 shots, they give you 1 star. But in any of those cases, they still let you move on to the next level until you get to like level 20. Once you get to level 20, it says, you need to have 40 stars or more to move forward. Go back and do any unit or any place that you want to, but don't come forward until you have at least 40 stars. Okay, fine. This is actually really helpful because the game lets you choose what you go back to, and it gives you that second chance. Research out of a book from a woman named Sarah Lewis, who's a Harvard researcher. She talks about the science of the near win, and they did research on silver medalists. And what they found is that even though the difference between gold and silver and bronze medalists is like minuscule and microscopic, what we see in silver medalists almost universally is that face, that Michaela Moroni face that says, damn it, if I just have 1 more second or 1 more swing of that bat or 1 more roll of those dice. In fact, it's the very same science that causes addictions in games. If I just had 1 more chance at that thing, then I'm sure I could win. And we're haunted by this idea of, can I just get 1 more swing of that bat, 1 more go at it? Could I use that same science behind the silver medalist and the Angry Birds in a classroom, getting kids excited to push themselves a little harder to their goal? Here's my rubric. You can see very quickly that it's been dressed up to look like Indiana Jones, but when you get behind all the coat of paint, it's just a rubric about, okay, a 5-paragraph essay, literally the most boring thing you could possibly ever think to teach. In this one, I needed them to give an introduction paragraph and then maybe use font and spacing, maybe have a thesis, maybe have a conclusion, whatever it looks like. I'll give this to every student. We'll just start writing, and it's a writer's workshop for 3 or 5 days in class. As students think they have something, right? They call me over, or better yet, they come up to me so I don't have to do all the walking. And when it says introduction paragraph begins by mentioning the full name of the author, title of work, I'll tell them right there on the spot. They either get 1, 2, or 3 stars, or in this case, 1 through 4 gemstones. As a child gets it, they're either told, nice work, you've nailed this. Keep moving. You got this. Keep going. Or you got some of it. You don't have all of it. I can't tell you what you need to do, but I can see what's not here. Does that make sense, Bobby? And then they have a choice. I've now checked in with each child 10, 15, 20 times before they even turn in a single essay. And I can give calibrated feedback so I can see the type of direction that they're skewing towards. And I can help them get the feedback that they need. So we'll play music in the background. The place is hopping and popping. They're working to mastery at their own paces. And they're coming up and getting things spot checked with me 3, 4, 5, 10 times a class. That's good news. I see Jonathan here has 13 points and everyone else has less than Jonathan. When Jonathan checks in with me, I'll say, hey, John, you did great. This next one, it says that you have to have flowing sentences. I think you have some dangling participles in there, man. He's like, what is that? I'm like, that's a good question. I can't tell you. But in order to get 4 gemstones, you need to have that solved away. Up to you if you want to try to work on that. Of course, because he's ahead of the pack, he's going to go and do that work. And here's the beauty of it. I don't have to know what dangling participles are. I just want him to do a little bit more work to slow him down. So he's working on next level work, and that will help him finish it just about the same time as Alex down here, who's having trouble with subject verb agreement. No problem. I can give him those attaboys, and his 4 stars might look different than Jonathan's 4 stars. Different students learn in different ways on different days, and that's okay. Teaching every student the same doesn't mean we're teaching every student fairly, and certainly not treating every student equitably. If we are being fair to every student, we're not necessarily being equitable. So let's be more human-centered in our teaching practices. This is one way to do it. Talking about how we grade these things then, talking about fair and equitable. On the left-hand side, here's the traditional rubric. Here's how you did in my class. 50% of your final grade for this project comes from what I found in your essay. I checked in with it. I saw how you did. That's there on the left-hand side. But we started our class year off with being able to chart our own learning. So why don't you chart your own learning on the right-hand side? 50% of your grade comes from what I said about you. Now chart it on the right-hand side. You can get a visual representation of what you knew and what you are struggling with. Make some connections. Because I don't hate you, the other 50% of your grade comes from what you see in yourself. There are 3 questions, and I'll ask them one at a time so you actually take the time to answer them. Question 1, which of the obstacles right now are you dominating? You're crushing it. Brag about yourself. Tell me why and how. What are you doing well? Okay. Question 2, what are these obstacles are giving you the hardest time right now? Can you talk about why? Help me out with that. Nice. Question 3, what do you think we can do better to help you forward? Like, how can we go ahead to make this stronger for this next go at it? Now they're brought into the goal setting process, right? 50% of the grade is Meehan said this. 50% is, well, here's what I see in myself. And they're taking it seriously. They're being honest. They're putting in the work. Then when they do the next exercise, it's just another essay, right? Same 5-paragraph format. We print out the exact same sheet. We give them the chance to see themselves. And now we're talking about Carol Dweck and mindset and growth mindset. They can see it's not just that Mr. Meehan loves or hates me. It's I struggle with writing thesis statements. How much more then are they setting targeted goals where they're seeing that progress? Then I can give this information to their next year's teacher and say, hey, here's what Billy did in this unit. Here's what Billy wasn't able to do in this unit. Here's what we can do in our next unit based on the strengths that he's seeing and the goals he's setting for himself. I want to talk about this one here real quick. I did a unit on poetry. Sometimes you teach poems and you teach things that are just not appropriate for games. That doesn't mean that you can't have students being playful and engaging at their own pace to do it. I passed out the poem and I said, the author left us a secret in here, guys, but it's up to you to unlock it. We rolled the dice and they said whatever they got added up on all the dice, maybe 40 or 50 different points apiece. Those are the number of words you're allowed to keep. Here's what the poem looks like without it. You find the secret message that's hidden inside because there's a main idea here. And then you black out everything else to bring to life those deep, dark secrets the author left. This is stuff that deals with Holocaust imagery. It deals with death imagery. It deals with self-harm and these confessional poetry. I didn't have to teach a single word of that stuff. I just watched what students were able to reveal. They felt playful. They felt empowered. They felt like they were digging for content and they were proud of the work that they were doing and then wanting to master it to show it off to their classmates. Hey, here's what I got. What did you get? Oh, I didn't see that. Hold on, wait, where did you find that information? This is a really powerful way, even in a traumatic or a hard thing, to have them not take themselves so seriously that it's a matter of life and death every time they get the wrong answer. Talking about this and celebrating students, as we finish our week, I'll always send out a newsletter every Friday to moms and dads and families and their grown-ups that says, hey, here's who got gold stars this week. Here's who got gold medals. Totally disaggregated from grades, not related to who has an A in the class, because there's different ways to get ahead by, like hitting the luck of the draw. Maybe other kids, 5 and 10 teams all got gold medals this week, but 3 teams have A's on top of that. Grades are separate from our medal count, and we're just doing a showcase of the great work that we're seeing from everybody. And then every week they're sitting up a little straighter. They're happy about the work they're doing. They're like getting that gold star affirmation, seeing their name on the fridge, and they want to show their moms and dads, their families, hey, this is the video of the thing I turned in. Oh, he put me in a newsletter this week. I must have been really good. They're proud of that work and they're being celebrated. Does it take time to make these? Yeah. But then I don't have kids cutting class or cutting homework or copying off of one another because they're happy about seeing themselves. And it takes more time for me to do all the policing than it would to do all the planning. I'd rather do the planning because that's where the joy comes from. And I share my templates freely, so you don't even have to do the planning. Just copy it from my website. I'm glad to share it. Talked about autonomy and mastery. I want to close by talking about purpose. Like a good game of chess, there's always the end game. The end game of this was designed for a whole year of American literature to study this great American dream of what does it mean to protect and defend and affirm and ultimately pass that dream on to the next generation. So as we finish our last reading of the year in our American Lit class, we read a book by William Faulkner called As I Lay Dying. It's a story about a family who loses a parent and the grief process that they go through for it. It also ends, unfortunately, with the main character being committed to an insane asylum, which was a fact of life in the 19 teens and 20s, and actually well into the mid 20th century. So I don't want to make light of this. We read it in the month of May, which is a mental health awareness month. And so for my students, I don't ever want to make them feel embarrassed or make light of any sort of real life trauma, like we saw with the Sylvia Plath's poem or the Hester Prynne information. Again, never feeling bullied and blamed and shamed, but rather to defend and to protect this dream. So I'll have them scan their credentials as if they came into a major hospital, research hospital. And just like they would swipe their cards or check their ID when they came through the door, now we're in a group, and now you're a part of a research team. That's where the warm-up question there lives for them. And instead of competing for gold and silver and bronze medals, which might be a little tacky, you're working in research teams to become the director of this hospital. Which team of our researchers can have the strongest patient recommendations on this confidential data that we're reviewing? What's the confidential data? That's the patient's diaries. What are the patient's diaries? Oh, chapters of the book where the characters are saying what they are feeling. Learning as a team how we can better ourselves, how we can protect and defend and ultimately empower people who have been marginalized and the awful things they've been forced to go through. And again, never making light of it, but rather helping them make sense of some really hard stuff. We talked about closing the year out with this idea of this American dream that almost turns into an American nightmare. One of these things that they can learn and they tie into the world around them is in the late 19th century, early 20th century, asylums were a thing, guys. Scan this and you'll learn about all the reasons why people could be sent to asylums. With your teammates, find the things that you think are the most shocking reasons. Tell me why. The most sad reasons. Tell me why. Again, metacogniting. You explain why you said what you said. Those hidden discoveries are there for your finding. You start to think like what good readers do, like good historians do, what good researchers do, separating real news from fake news and vetting credible sources and information. And now our students are proud and they're like, hey, I have a thing. Can I show this to the class? We finish our class year off because I don't hate my kids. I never give them that big old test. What year was this legal or not legal? What was the time or the place of this stuff? Rather, let's use the good research and we take a class trip to the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, which is located 4 hours from my school. It's a full-day class trip. It is a National Historic Site that was built in 1864 to house 250 persons on its space. When it was forcibly closed by the United States government in 1994, 130 years later, that 250-person facility had at max capacity over 2,500 human beings in that same space. And now we talk about how the American dream can become an American nightmare. If we do not solve these problems the right way, if we just lock people away and send them away, whether they're bullied or blamed or shamed because of their sexuality, because of their history, because of their race, because of their faith, because of their gender, because of their mental abilities or their emotional distress, is that what it means to protect and defend this American dream? And as we spend this year building to this, again, talking about purpose, they build me a website where they talk about everything they learned this year. And they talk about how we can do better for the next generation of these things. How much more do they actually want to write that essay and tie in evidence from what we've seen and researched, rather than the main character's name was X. On page so-and-so, this happened to him. They can see purpose in what we do. I tell them that your favorite class is the one that you love the most. Your best class is the one where you learn the most. If I did my job right this year, we have purpose because this class was both of those things. And I aspire to be that every single day. I want to share this with you guys at the end. I want to say thank you for your time today. I know you have a lot of options and places you could be today, so I want to thank you for spending some time with me. I said every template is available here on adrenalinerush.com. That's where I share everything you saw in today's presentation. The book talks about all this stuff in detail and so much more. I highly recommend it, and not just because it's the one thing that makes money. If you think you're reading it and it sucks, let me know and I will send you your money back. I'm so sorry if it sucks. I don't think it does. And you can read the first couple of chapters on Amazon for free. I do a podcast every Monday, which I record in my car. It's called Talk to Me in the Car. It's all about education. I'm on Twitter at MeehanEDU, and I am excited to talk about teaching with people who are excited to change the game. I hope you stay safe. God bless you. I hope you test negative and stay positive. And if there's anything I can do to help, I'm all in to do it. I'll hang out on the chat afterwards. If you liked today's presentation, feel free to hit it up on the Sketch app. Let us know that it was good. And hit me up here on Twitter, and let's figure out how we can make it better. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Very, very powerful session. I love the different avenues that you do use to make things more relevant to your students. Thank you very much. And guys, the secret word is success. All right.